I'm Amanda, a 56-year-old mom to 2 sons. My husband passed away when I was just 31, leaving me to single-handedly raise our 2 boys. I worked my tail off, both at my job and at home. I'd like to say both my sons have blossomed into men I can proudly introduce anywhere, but that's not quite the case. Take my eldest Kevin, for instance. He was a bit of a wild child growing up, maybe because I had a laid-back approach. He hung out with a freewheeling crowd in middle school. And there was even a time when I was summoned to school for serious chit-chat about his daily antics. In stark contrast, my younger one, Tim, learned from Kevin's free-spirited ways and morphed into a very conscientious and responsible young man. While Kevin would only dive into his homework after I nagged him, Tim would tackle it head on the second he got home, no prodding needed. When both of my boys got their college diplomas, I finally felt a burden lift from my shoulders. I sighed in relief. The rigors of child rearing were in my rearview mirror. Ever since my husband's unexpected passing, I was bogged down my worries. Can I go alone? Can I raise 2 kids alone? But after watching them cross the stage at graduation, I could finally let out a sigh of relief. Now, as full-grown adults, my boys would have to sail the seas of life by themselves. I made up my mind to steer clear of meddling too much in their lives, even as their mom. So, when Kevin announced he was engaged and wanted to introduce his future wife, I decided to keep my nose out of his family affairs. When my husband and I tied the knot, both of our folks had already passed on. Our mutual loneliness, not having any kin around, was what bounded us. That's why, as a mother-in-law, I was a little unsure about how to relate to his future wife. Even there was a standard way to act, I figured it best to avoid being a busybody. No one likes someone meddling in their personal life, not even family. To his fiancé, I was just a stranger she was meeting for the first time. I decided to keep a respectful distance. When I spilled all to this Tim, who's still crashing at home, he got a kick out of it. Or are you gearing up to be the wicked stepmom to Kevin's fiancé? He ripped me. You might end up being thick as thieves. So just chill. But I shot back. Isn't it par for the course for mother-in-law and daughter-in-law to be at odds? That's just you, binge watching too much soap opera. He laughed off my concerns. He probably never even thought about those issues between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. But hey, if Kevin's soon-to-be wife ended up hitting it up with me, that would be fabulous. However, all my hopes crumbled when his fiancée, Erin, swung by our place for their engagement announcement. She was a super thick, modern woman with long, pointy nails and flashy makeup. I've never seen someone with such flamboyant style. And I've never sported long, pointy nails or bright makeup. While I was sizing her up, she was also giving me the once-over. Then, out of blue, she turned to my son and said, I don't think your mom and I are going to be on the same page about clothes or makeup. It was true. We had widely different tastes. I had never rocked a mini skirt like hers, or bleached my hair blonde like she had. But it felt a bit off for her to air that out in front of me. As I stood there gobsmacked, Kevin shrugged it off, saying, Well, Mom, looks like you and Erin have a smidge of a generation gap. I nodded, admitting to myself, so this is what they call a generation gap. After that, we got the lowdown on how they bumped into each other in college, and how Kevin charmed her at a college reunion. Kevin regaled us with their love saga with gusto, while Tim and I turned in, sipping our tea and munching on snacks. Erin, on the other hand, looked uninterested and kept twiddling with her phone, not even pretending to crack a smile while Kevin beamed, narrating his tale. For someone popping in to share their engagement news, I thought she seemed a tad standoffish. But if my son was head over heels for her, who was I to object? They likely dropped by to break the news, because they planned to tie the knot, whether I approved or not. After all, I had a hunch Kevin wouldn't call the whole thing off, just based on my 2 cents. He's always been a stand your ground kind of guy once he's made up his mind. So, I held my tongue. At our family's meet and greet, I chatted up her folks, who were downright friendly and candid with me, quite unlike their daughter. I recall thinking maybe she was walking on eggshells because I was her future mother-in-law, but I decided to let it slide. If she wanted to keep me at arm's length, that was her call. Half a year after they came to our place to announce their engagement, they went and made their union official. Both Tim and I snagged an invite to the wedding, and everything went off without a snag. With a picture-perfect wedding ceremony under their belts, they looked set to kick off their married life. That's when something dawned on me. They never clued me in on their new address. Yeah, sure. In this day and age, you can ping a message on your phone without having to mail Christmas cards, so you don't really need someone's physical address. But as a mom, I wondered if I should be in the know about when my son was nesting. After a bit of mental tug-of-war, I decided to ring him up. Kevin, how's married life treating you? All moved in? I just realized I didn't snag your new address. I asked him over the phone. He sounded a touch irritated and said, Hold on, leaving me hanging on the line for a while. When he finally got back on and said, Hello, and explained that Arian didn't want him to spill their address. I was taken aback, but if she, his new family, didn't want to share their address, I couldn't do much about it. I decided to let it slide, and I could sense Kevin's relief over the phone that I backed down so readily. When I relayed this to Tom after work, he started exclaiming, No way! That's not kosher. It's normal to share your address. But I just shrugged. Well, they must have their reasons. And managed to placate him. 3 years zipped by. Tim had been living solo for a while, so I decided to sell the family home and downsize to an apartment. That's when a message from Tim popped up. Mom, have Kevin and Erin extended an invite to their new pet yet? I'm stumped about what to get them as a housewarming gift. I was hoping you could help me zero in on something, he said. Initially, I was a bit puzzled by what he meant. What's this about Kevin and Erin's new house? Judging from his mention of a housewarming gift, I gathered they would snapped up a new place and were living there, but this was news to me. What are you on about? Did they buy a house? I asked. Tim seemed taken aback by my reaction. Hold up. You seriously weren't clued in? Their new house was ready to go about a month ago. They said they'd finally gotten settled and invited me over. I just assumed you've gotten an invite too. I decided to get a hold of Kevin right away. When I said, Tim let slip you guys finished building your new place? Kevin sounded peeved again and replied, Erin made me promise not to tell you, Mom. That's why I've been tight-lipped till now. She's going to hit the roof if she finds out you're in the know. Let's just pretend you're still in the dark about the new place. I'd always made an effort not to pry too much into their business. But isn't it common for relatives, let alone a mother, to join in a celebration of a new home? Tim, my youngest son, scored an invite to the housewarming. But I, their mother, was left in the cold. Why was I the odd one out? What did I do to get on Erin's bad side this badly? If I put a foot wrong, I'd like to at least say I'm sorry. I asked my son, Why doesn't Erin want me in the loop about your address? Why would she clue Tim in but leave me out? Kevin sounded a touch peeved and shot back. Why don't you ask her straight up? It sounded like she called her up and handed off the phone. Hello? An irked voice came through. Hello, Erin? Tim let slip you guys bought a new place. Just as I said that, I heard a tisk from the other end. I even heard her grumble under her breath that guy's spilling beans he shouldn't be. She made no bones about the fact that she wasn't my biggest fan. With a downright grumpy attitude, she retorted, Why should I loop you in? Why?
Because I don't want any part in the life of a downer like you.
I beg your pardon?
Kevin told me you raised him and him all by your lonesome. That makes you a pitiful woman dumped by your hubby, right? Or maybe you had kids, knowing full well your partner had eyes for another woman. You were stuck raising your son solo because of that, right? I don't want to be lumped in with someone like that as family or relatives. I'm trying to keep you at arm's length. So why are you dodgily trying to bridge the gap? To be blunt, it's a nuisance.
I was at a loss for words. I hadn't seen that coming. It's true that I raised my boys alone, but my husband was taken from us in a sudden accident. I wasn't abandoned. And there is absolutely no truth to the notion that I forced a pregnancy. I wish my son would set her straight on the misunderstanding, but he tends to sidestep sticky situations. Maybe because I didn't directly affect him, he let the misunderstanding slide. His hands-off approach seemed to reinforce her image of me as a pitiful woman. She stamped me as a miserable woman and said she doesn't want to be part of the same circle. I don't want any part in their lives after being dissed this badly. So you were saying you'll keep your address under wraps, come what may, and you don't want any dealings from now on?
Clearly. I don't share personal stuff with just anyone. I'm grateful that you gave life to Kevin. I'll thank you for just that.
After dropping that bombshell, she hung up. For now, I decided to steer clear of them, and I filled Tim in on the call, and he was worried about me. He was fuming on my behalf, but when I said, if she decided to cut ties, then so be it, he shot back. Then I'll give them a wide berth too. There's no benefit in mingling with such crass people. Tim had scored an invite to their new pet, but it looked like he gave it a pass. He didn't drop my name and vaguely brushed it off, saying he was swamped. For half a year, I didn't touch base with Kevin or Erin, and they didn't either. However, out of the blue, 6 months later, Erin rings me up. Her voice over the phone was nothing like the grumpy one I remembered. It was quite humble.
Is this Amanda? It's been a while.
Caught off guard by her polite tone, I reflexively asked, I'm sorry, who's this? Taken aback, she quickly said, It's me, Erin, Kevin's wife. I'm your daughter. I don't recall having a daughter.
Not in that sense. I mean, I tied a knot with your son. So in a way, I'm sorta like a daughter, you know? That's why I said I'm your daughter. Didn't you always pine for a daughter? From now on, if you want, you can treat me like your daughter.
I just heaved a sigh. You sure are tenacious, huh? I don't have a daughter. If this is some sort of prank, I'm hanging up.
Oh, please, don't. We're in a real jam right now. Kevin and I are flat broke. I heard you're a big boss of a company that rakes in a cool $1 million annually, right?
I wonder where she picked up on that. Well, it doesn't really matter. The crux of it is, she's after my money. The business I'm running was originally my husband's brainchild. I'd been his right hand as the vice president, but then he was tragically taken in an accident, and before I knew it, I was sitting in the president's chair. Since then, I put my heart and soul into it and steered the company to success. Now it's a big shot with an annual income of $10 million. But I'm curious as to why she suddenly reached out with dollar signs in her eyes. Whatever gig I have, it doesn't involve a stranger like you, does it?
Don't be so morose. I'm your eldest son's wife, so you shouldn't be giving me the cold shoulders.
I sighed. How can she claim I'm being cold when she's been nothing but discourteous to me? She's got some chutzpah. The one who got me all wrong, looked down on me, and played the stranger card to keep me at a distance. Doesn't mean squat to me. So, I'm hanging up now. Bye.
Wait! Fork over some cash, Amanda! Amanda?
After 3 years of radio silence, She had the gall to pop up out of the blue asking for money. I pondered why she was so hot for my cash. The answer soon fell into my lap. Apparently, Kevin and Erin conned her folks out of their savings to snag a house. They peeped about buying a house to live together, finessed money from her parents, and bought a standalone house. Even though they assured her parents they were building a two-family home to cohabit, they didn't follow through. Now they were in the doghouse with her parents. Their cash flow has been cut off, and they're just scraping by. It looks like Kevin had been yapping about money with Tim. But I pressed Tim, he spilled the beans. One of Kevin's pals suggested, "Your mom is running a 10 million empire. Just hit her up for a loan." That sparked Kevin's memory of my nest egg, and it seems Erin chose to make her move. Even if it had been my son who reached out, I wouldn't have floated them alone. I'm not big-hearted enough to extend a lifeline to folks like them and don't lift a finger to help themselves. And so, I nixed her call. A week later, she was spotted on the lot where my old house once stood. It seems Erin, who'd made an illegal entry into the house, had a run-in with the boys in blue. Apparently, she thought I was still shacked up there and decided to break in and snatch some money. While she was poking around for valuables, the house's alarm system triggered, and she wound up in the clutches of the cops. Her audacity floored me. At the same time, I breathed a sigh of relief that I had relocated. If I were still holed up in that house, not only would my precious stuff be swept, but she could have even posed a threat to my safety. It turns out she'd been robbing not just me, but also her buddies' places. When she landed in the slumber, Kevin texted me out of the blue. "Mom, can you look after me?" I blocked his number without replying and set it to reject calls. I'm swapping out my smartphone this week, so he'll be out of touch for good. After a bit, Tim let me know that Kevin had been scooped up by the mafia. It's a heartbreaker to sever ties with my son this way. But he's not a kid who needs his mom to bail him out anymore. He'll have to untangle his own mess. I'll keep grinding to grow the company my husband bequeathed me, even if it's just by a smidge.